Okay, so I have tilted my reference sketch, a copy of my reference sketch, so that I can have my bottle be vertical. That way I can use guides like this guide, just like in Illustrator. Command semicolon turns them on and off. You hit Command R to get your rulers, and you use the Move tool to drag a guide out. And this is how you can get perfectly symmetrical shapes very cleanly in Illustrator. I'm going to use my pen tool to draw it. So I start with a horizontal, a vertical, and I'm going to go a little bit past halfway because I'm doing the pin cap, right? Actually, I won't do it as separate shapes. I'll do it all as one shape. So like this, I'm going to go in from there, and now I'm going to do a curve. So I click and drag, just reminding you of how the pin tool works. And then it gives me a sympathetic curve, which is pretty helpful. So I'm going to use it. And then it goes to a straight again, but I still want it to be curved. So I'm going to go out to here and curve it just slightly. Then it gives me a sympathetic curve, which I can use. It's pretty nice. Then it gives me a sympathetic curve, which is a little too shallow. So I'm just going to use it a little bit and then increase the curve here. And then sympathetic curve. And then continue that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit as I'm building this. So far it's an empty path. I haven't chosen any fill for it yet. Curve. The sympathetic curve could work. Nope. So I have to click back on it to get the straight and then set my own curve, which will be like that. Right? Then the sympathetic curve doesn't work, so I got to plot my own curve like that. And then I'm going to go just a little bit past halfway, plot my own curve. And now I go all the way up to find the end point and close it. Okay. Now, because this is going to be cut out, I'm not going to fill it with black. I'm going to fill it with this other color I'm using. Now, how can I get it perfectly symmetrical? Well, first, I just want to make sure it's the shape I want. So I'm going to use my small selection tool. I'm going to round out the cap a little bit. I'm going to round out this just a tiny bit using the rounding tool. I'm going to round this point off. Nice and smooth. That looks good. Maybe this one could be rounded a bit. And then this is where it got tricky. See, this happens a lot, this little bump. So in order to control that, I need to be able to control the curve of that anchor point from each side. And, whoops. So what I have to do is find the curves that are affecting it, and they're coming from this anchor point. Come on, give me that handle. This is what I don't like about Illustrator. You have to really precisely click, because it was kind of designed to be used with the mouse. Trackpad can work as well, but it's hard with a tablet. Now this one is just a little bit off, and that's going to be using this anchor point. Kind of soften that. And then this one, I'm going to soften. And maybe straighten it out on this side. Okay, now I've got the shape I want. So I use the large selection tool, select the whole thing, and I'm going to do Edit Copy, and then Edit Paste in Place. So it's all lined up. And I can see it here. I have 2 copies of it. So I'm going to select one of them, one on top. Then I'm going to right click with the large selection tool, say transform and reflect. This is like flip horizontal in Photoshop. Reflecting off of the vertical is like a mirror. So it actually flips it horizontal at 90 degrees. Then I hold down shift and I click and drag to line it up so it's symmetrical. All right, now I'm going to show you the other tool for Pathfinder that's really helpful. And that's to merge paths together. Because right now, I'll turn off my guides. Right now, this is two separate paths. And they overlap, right? And I want them all to be just one fill path. But now it's perfectly symmetrical. And it would be too hard to draw that perfectly. So what I do is I select them both, just like when I subtract with the Pathfinder. But this time, instead of using minus, I use merge. And now it's one shape. Okay, that one shape, what if I want to look through it so I can see where to cut the lines out? I can go to Window and I can find Transparency. It's another one like Pathfinder I like to put on the sidebar. Having that vector path selected, I can click on Opacity and then take it down, just like opacity in Photoshop. Now, I'm going to use the rectangle tool. And I'm going to fill it with, well, first let me make them. I'm going to use it to make rectangles, just bars across. I'm going to fill them with, let's do bright red. Okay, then I'm going to copy it and paste it so that they're the same width. But I'll use the large selection tool to stretch them out. You can also use the arrow tool to nudge, and then copy and paste it. Use the large selection tool to move it. Okay, now I'm going to subtract these from what's underneath. But I can't do it all at once. If I do it all at once, if I select all of these, like merging, it won't let me subtract because it won't know what I'm trying to subtract with the Pathfinder. Right? So instead, what I need to do is do one at a time. So Pathfinder minus works best with a layer on the bottom and a layer on the top. And then I can cut it out. So that's one. Now I do the next one. But I have to move it to the bottom and then select one above it and then minus it. Whoops. Make sure I'm doing it right. So this is why you really have to understand paths and layers. So when I cut it in two, this is now two paths, right? And so when I selected all of it, I actually selected three paths. And I can only minus with two. So what do I need to do? I need to select this one. Let's do it with the small selection tool. That one. And then I need to select that one, right? And then I can minus it. Now I need to select this one and hold down Command and select that one. There we go. This can get confusing, but with some practice you get it, and then minus it. Okay, now I have my bottle shape. Whew, okay. So now what am I going to do with that bottle shape? I'm going to turn off the sketch that I rotated, right? And I'm going to take the bottle shapes, select them all, and then I'm going to merge them together. Now, even though none of them overlap, by merging them together, it puts it into a group, which makes it so I can select all of them easily. And then I can use the large selection tool to rotate them and move them all together. So I'm almost done. This is my last thing before I'm finished, right? I put it right there. All right. Now I've got all my components. I'm going to make sure they're all on top. And I have to decide what background I want, because I have two of them. I have this background. Let me unlock it so it will show. I have that background, which I did all with just the pencil tool. So let me turn off the sketch so it's not compromised, right? And I have this background. And really, they are different. But I think I actually like this one for whatever reason. The first one I made. But remember, turn this off for now, this one was made of a ton of different overlapping shapes. So this is where Pathfinder can also be useful, even though that's multiple shapes. Whereas minus should only be used with one underneath and one on top, merge can be used with multiple shapes as long as they're overlapping. So I'm going to merge those all into one just by having them all selected and then going to Pathfinder merge. And now that's a lot easier. Now that makes it so I can take these shapes and cut them out from that shape. But before I do that, it would make sense to just make sure they're in a position I like. So I'm going to move them all up a little bit. I could rotate them a tiny bit if I wanted to. I can grow them. You know, I have full control here. And if there's some change I want to make, like if I wanted to make this just a little bit more pointed, how can I do that? I could take this anchor point, move it out, take this anchor point, move it out a little bit, zoom in on those, and refine these curves, all with the small selection tool. Maybe pull this curve out a little bit more. You can really, really fine tune it. Okay, now I think I'm ready. And just to be safe, this is what I usually do with logo design. I'm going to copy all of the things I'm cutting out. I hit Command C, I copied it all. I lock the layer, I turn it off, I make a new layer on top, and then I go to Edit, and I say Paste in Place. Makes another copy of it. So, I'm also going to make a copy of this, the black shape I like. Command C, make a new layer on top, edit, paste in place. This is just me being extra careful so I don't have to repeat steps if I don't like how it turns out. So now I'm going to put my copies, I'm going to turn off all the others, on top, this group on top of this group. And because they're in their own layers and all grouped together, what I can try to do is select them both by holding down Command and then just doing minus. And like magic, it subtracted them all. It didn't make them white. It actually subtracted them all. And now I have a black shape logo. How do I know? Because if I drag it off onto the gray, you can see how it's not because there are white shapes and black shapes. It's because I cut them out. Woohoo! Okay, so that's using Pathfinder minus. So that is my finished logo. What do I need to do? I need to save it. I say File, Save. And I need to make sure it's named in a way I can find it, right? Especially because we're getting close to the midterm and printing. And you're going to need to print at least one vector in your portfolio of 3 for the midterm. So I'm going to call it Karl Assignment 4 Black Recycling Shape. AI. I'm going to save it to the desktop so you can see it. It's an Adobe Illustrator format, AI. That's the first vector format you save as. That's what's called a working format. I go to my desktop, I find it, I mark it green. Because if I want to make changes to that vector, that's what I use. An Adobe Illustrator file, AI. And make sure you put your name in there and some description. I just did Karl Assignment 4. Next, we need to save it as vector formats that can be used in Photoshop and in other programs like Photopea. These are called transferable vector formats. So I click on File and I say Save a Copy. Just like we would save a JPEG or a PNG.